I think by November of 2018, somebody messaged me and she was like, how much is it to book your consulting fees? I want to be able to speak to you. What does that look like? And again, at the time, I literally just started, so I didn't even have a consulting fee. I didn't know anything about that. And I told her it's $30, and she's like, no problem. And she booked, and I was able to just get on the phone with her and give her some advice for her business and for her account. And I realized in that moment that if I could make $30 from one client on accident, then I could do this on purpose and get hundreds and thousands of more people inside. So my first year, I would say business really was like October to December. I made $30, but my next year I made around $4,500. And then my next year after that, I made $130,000. So
welcome to the Community Financial Wellness Podcast, the podcast series by Wovio aimed at supporting and serving underbanked and underserved Canadians through community economic development. I'm your host, Justina Kanza, Program and Community Manager at Wovio, and today I'm excited to be chatting with my amazing guest, Natania, to learn more about freelancers and gig workers in Canada and some of the challenges they face in accessing traditional financial services, saving for retirement, building credit, and also accessing lines of credit. Natania, my guest, is a multi-passionate entrepreneur, content creator, influencer, and is best known as a business coach and digital marketer. She is also the owner and founder of Natania Creates, a creative hub for self-driven business women who are ready to scale their online businesses, help them grow in their impact and purpose, all while teaching them how to live the full life of their dreams. She has helped thousands of goal-getter women entrepreneurs on a global scale double their monthly income through her marketing strategies and programs. She's helped them quit their jobs to pursue entrepreneurship and freelancing and the gig economy, and finally run the business of their dreams without the guesswork, the fear, or the overwhelm that often accompanies entrepreneurship. Thank you for being here with me, Natania, today.
Thank you, Justina, for the opportunity. I'm so excited just to be able to share a little bit about my journey into entrepreneurship and what that looked like and how we can help others achieve that financial journey and wellness as well.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect place to start as well. Share with us your background in entrepreneurship. How did you start? What do you do? How do you serve your clients and your community through that?
Yeah, so I started my business when I was 21, I believe at the time. I was a full-time nursing student at Ottawa University. And I remember just starting my Instagram account back in October 2018. And I wanted to just have a creative outlet where I could kind of just express myself online. And I wanted to empower other women to start their business, to run their business, and really a lot of that, like live the business of your dreams. So that's how it started. And I remember, I think by November of 2018, somebody messaged me and she was like, how much is it to book your consulting fees? I want to be able to speak to you. What does that look like? And again, at the time, I literally just started, so I didn't even have a consulting fee. I didn't know anything about that. And I told her it's $30, and she's like, no problem. And she booked, and I was able to just get on the phone with her and give her some advice for her business and for her account. And I realized in that moment that if I could make $30 from one client on accident, then I could do this on purpose and get hundreds and thousands of more people inside. So my first year, I would say business really was like October to December. I made $30, but my next year I made around $4,500. And then my next year after that, I made $130,000. So my business really took off. And then the next year after that, I made $200,000. And my business just continued to grow and scale because I understood that I can help other people create content for them, give them advice when it comes to digital marketing strategies. But if they don't have a holistic aspect on how they can run a profitable business through marketing, through messaging, through web design, through graphic design, and coming up with different processes on how they want to start and launch and actually have that income be sustainable, then we have a lot of people who have pretty Instagram accounts, but not people who are actually very profitable. So that's where I got started with business. And yeah, I never went back to nursing. I still have my active license, but I never went back. And I've been doing my business full time. And it's been sustainable because I have processes and systems in place, and really just the business knowledge on how to start and how to scale.
You know what? You might never have gone back to nursing, but you're nursing people's businesses back to life, and that too is important. But that is so impressive. Firstly, congratulations! You 100x'd your company from like 4,000 to almost 140. That is a lot. Like, I want to hear more about how you did, because I'm a business owner myself. But also, one thing I'm getting from you, which is like such resilience and resourcefulness, which I imagine a lot of entrepreneurs need, especially when navigating finances, is say yes and figure it out later. Like your first client, you didn't even have
nothing
a plan whatsoever. It's like, say yes, but imagine how much more, and you've shown us how much more you can have once you have those systems in place. And I'm looking forward to hearing that from you today, the systems that you put in place, especially when you're looking at the financial side of business. What did that look like?
Yeah, so it looks like understanding money as a whole. So I understood that I don't want to shy away from talking about money. And I realized that the more that I talked about it, the more that I understood how to make it, and the more that I understood of how to save it and how to build wealth, because that really is the ultimate goal. So at the time, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they're doing their taxes themselves, and that's fine. I think if you're starting out, but as your business continues to grow and you want it to scale, looking into hiring a bookkeeper and a CPA to file your taxes, and then having those conversations with them of how can I maximize my income? How can I save? How can I legally, write off taxes? Because that's so important. And different ways on how you can move into building wealth. So that was, I would say, like a kind of a process that I put in place of every month I'm going to be speaking to my accountant or my CPA. They're going to be now doing my taxes and figuring out different ways on how I can save money, or different ways on how I can write off my living expenses. So now I can write off some of my mortgage, or I can write off some of my the home that I bought, so the office space. I can write off my utilities, my expenses, my phone bill, my Wi-Fi, my everything. I bought a new phone, I bought a new laptop, I bought cameras, like all of the equipment that I need to be a full-time content creator. I understand that I can write this off. Another system I put in place, I would say financially, is I'm looking at, and I think this kind of leads into like the next segment of savings and retirement. And so I realized that, wow, I have about 6 figures saved in my bank. What am I going to do with this money? I don't want it to just stay here and kind of depreciate over time. I know that inflation's a thing, not really familiar with these terms, but understanding that, I want to be extremely proficient when it comes to money. So then having many conversations with the bank of, okay, what do I do with this money? What can I do? How can I continue to grow my income outside of me, let's say, just relying on my business or those multiple streams of income, or that gig work that I'm doing? What does that look like? So investing into stocks, opened a GIC account, and looking into the TSFAs, and then maxing that out, and then moving into the RSP as well. So
that's
just
amazing.
having that knowledge, I think, is so important as a freelancer, because your income is not reliable. Your income is very much dependent on you, and you moving, or you working, or you completing that work or that contract. So just really understanding that money is not as predictable as somebody who's working a 9 to 5, or somebody who has that salary. So how can you just protect yourself as much financially? I think it's important.
Yeah, and you make a good point about entrepreneurship not having like an income consistency in that sense. And sometimes when you're hoping to scale and you need to access like lines of credit and loans, and you don't have that income consistency, and sometimes you don't even have credit built, that then becomes a challenge. I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly Black entrepreneurs, and one of the biggest challenges we have is access to funding, whether that's VC funding, whether that's loans and credit cards. So how did you do it? And you've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs yourself. So how do you navigate accessing those different types of credit when you don't have financial consistency through your income? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I would say for those who are looking to or who's trying to like branch into them, they don't have that financial income, I would say in terms of just, let's say, business advice, I would say do what you can in terms of any work that you can, and have that be documented and written down. I know for my case, my business grew and it scaled extremely quickly. So I had that money there, and that money is visible with the bank, and it was easy for me to be approved to get credit cards because it's physically there and they can see that. But I know that's not always the case for everybody. So I would say do the work that you can in terms of any gig work, or if you are trying to branch into multiple streams of income, because there's a point within your business where you're just looking to making that money. And it's not that like you're money hungry or you're just focused on making money, but when I was starting out, I did so many different things. I did a lot of gig work, a lot of freelancing. I did social media coaching, management, virtual assistant, web design, graphic design. So I'm having money come in so many different avenues. And then it's not that I was super passionate about all of these things that I was doing, but I did it because I understood that long term, I'm going to need this money there to build my credit score. I'm also going to need this money to eventually purchase a home because I know that we're looking at the 2-year average. So I'm just thinking long term. And I understand in those moments that I don't have to love all the work that I'm doing right now. But if I can do it and I can make some money and I can bank that and save that, then that will be enough for me to at least just push me forward. So my advice would be do what you can to get by until you don't have to do what you can and you can start doing what you love.
What you love. Ooh, do what you can until you can start doing what you love. That's a really great one. But you mentioned something really interesting, especially around like focusing, yes, on saving and having different sources of income, but also like building your credit score. And we chatted before about a platform like Wovio, like some of these non-traditional ways of banking and of finance where they help you build your credit while accessing different pools of capital. Like how do you think something like that would be valuable for entrepreneurs based on your understanding of it?
Yeah, so I think it would be extremely valuable because a lot of people are getting into entrepreneurship and they generally don't have the capital. So let's say like your business is not service-based, and like let's say you're doing a brick and mortar business, or you have an idea to start a platform or an app, and you're going to need some capital to invest into that business to get started, especially if it's brick and mortar. You're going to be looking at a loan. You're going to be looking at where are you going to actually house your business. You're going to be looking at a lease or commercial real estate. That's something I also even looked into. So it is extremely hard to get started. It's not impossible, but having an app like Wovio, did I say it properly?
You did.
Okay, good. Having an app like Wovio will allow entrepreneurs, it's going to create that access for them to be able to have that money there and have that already in their account. And they're going to be able to pull from that when they need that and be able to grow their business depending on what their business needs and expenses are. So I think it's a really great idea. I'm really looking forward to seeing different entrepreneurs be able to start their business and seeing more people expand because they now have access to that type of capital that they didn't traditionally have, because they're still learning to build their credit score, because they're not maybe being approved or having access to different finances from traditional banks.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for audience watching and listening from wherever you are, just for some context on like how Wovio helps entrepreneurs and gig workers access capital. So we're using a system called rotating savings circles, which is very familiar globally, called different things in different parts of the world. We're saying how it's called Padna in Jamaica, in Zambia, where I'm from, they're called Chilimba. But in the business and entrepreneurship case, essentially what happens is a group of entrepreneurs come together and decide on a cadence of how frequently they want to pull funds in this rotating circle and how much funds they want to pull. And so say, for example, Natania and I have a business whose capital is like $200, right? And so this month we decide that we're going to put in $100 each. We put in $100 and then I get the payout of the $200 to be able to start my business. And it's almost like a secured loan, like kind of borrowing from future money that you would have, but doing so interest free. And also while building your credit score, because another thing that we do too is as you're making these payments to these community circles, these rotating savings circles, we're reporting positive payment to Equifax, which helps you build a credit score. And also we've built partnerships with traditional financial institutions and credit unions like Meridian, where all members of our platform, especially entrepreneurs, can access and open free banking accounts with Meridian. So no banking fees, you get some savings there. And then you also access like credit cards starts from them at a low cost of borrowing, and also no credit card fees for about 3 years based on this partnership. And then once you've been able to build that credit history from, again, contributing to those saving circles, you're able to access capital in form of credit from Meridian of up to $10,000. And we're hoping to do this with a lot of other financial institutions, because especially for marginalized and racialized entrepreneurs, like that's a huge barrier, would you say?
Yeah, it is, because the financial literacy is just not there, unfortunately, that it should be in the Black community, let alone like Black entrepreneurs. I don't know about your journey into entrepreneurship, but for mine, just telling my parents that I'm going to go into creating content full time and business coaching, that was like a lot of side eyes. And I get it, right? Because going into nursing is, that financial security long term. So not understanding that you can start a business and your business can be wealthy. And if you have that financial literacy and have that education around money as a whole, you can be extremely successful. So I think what you're doing and the company in of itself, it's so innovative and it's extremely creative, and it is much needed for the community. And I genuinely believe that by way of them having access to this, more people will be able to feel more confident to start their business, because they no longer will have that barrier. And you also mentioned that you're going to be doing that financial education as well. So that is going to be a way of how people can get access to building wealth and building their business and scaling, because it's going to start with that financial literacy and that knowledge.
Yeah. And if you're like religious or Christian like me, like, the Bible says like my people perish due to lack of knowledge. And that's very, very prominent in our communities, because there's ways, and I want you to talk on this more, ways that you can save for retirement, even as an entrepreneur, that you can access benefits that you would as an employee, even as an entrepreneur. So what does that look like? What should be my entrepreneurs and freelancers and gig workers looking out for in that arena?
Yeah. So when it comes to being an entrepreneur, it's so funny because I actually just talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where I made a post on Threads and it actually went viral. And I said that I think in 10 to 15 years, a lot of people are going to regret going into content creation full time without understanding the ins and outs of the industry, especially because they're just getting started. And the post went viral and people were chiming in that, having a degree doesn't mean that you're going to be financially wealthy. And like the conversation went in a completely opposite direction. So people talked about retirement, and my community is heavily based in the US. So people talked about like a Roth IRA, like things I'm not even familiar with, right? And it was just like, I have thought about this for a long time of retirement, savings, benefits. Like I was like, okay, I want to, get my teeth cleaned and I'm not trying to pay $300 out of pocket. So what does that look like? So then I had to do some research about, getting insurance as an employee from my own corporation. So I was paying around, I think it was like $112, $120 a month. I was paying like Blue Cross Ontario for the basic, like not even like super high tech, like, if I was in the hospital, I got a private room, like basic insurance, y'all. And I remember like encountering these parts in my business where I'm like, wow, I'm going through this because I'm an entrepreneur, not because, I have to go through this. And I hear like, my husband or like other people saying like, they don't even pay for, their benefits. They don't even pay for these things. But as an entrepreneur, you got to pay about $100 per month, and you have to then be able to budget and save the money that you're making to be able to afford just healthcare if you need glasses or you need to get your teeth cleaned, you want to do physio. So that was something that was a little bit of an eye-opener of like, this is the realities of being a freelancer. These are the realities of being a content creator, that you're going to have to pay for these things out of pocket. But it's in those moments where I'm reminded that we have no cap on our income. Like one time my business is doing $30,000 for the month, or another time it's doing $10,000 for the month. Like there's no cap on how much my business can make, but that is a trade-off of having to pay $100 plus per month out of insurance. So you want to budget for insurance. You want to think about your retirement. That's not something that I find is talked a lot about in the online space. And I think that's a frustration that I've had for months now, because there's such a push for people to get into business and content creation to start their business without realizing or understanding that if you are quitting your 9 to 5, if you're closing that door even temporarily, you're now having to figure out how you're going to save for your retirement. What does that even look like? How much money do you even need to have saved to retire successfully? What does that number look like? So I had to just go down the rabbit hole of just doing some research. And, I'm only 27, so I'm still just trying to figure out what that looks like. But for me, again, going back to the bank, I went back to the bank a couple weeks ago of like, okay, I want to take out an X amount of money so that way I can save for my retirement. I'm going to do this. I'm going to trade. So I'm looking into stocks. I'm looking into a GIC, and I'm looking into trading. I also then had to speak back to my accountant and say, okay, let's say I have around 6 figures saved in the bank. Let's say I take some of that out and I, do a 1-year loan on that income, and I use that money to trade, or I use that money to look into maybe taking out a savings account, a mutual funds account through the business, or I take that money out and I trade with that, or I look into real estate. So those are different ways of how I'm looking to building wealth so I can put that money aside and save for retirement. But again, it's not something that I find that's really talked about a lot, which is why I think a lot of people may regret going into content creation, because I don't think everybody's thinking long term. I think a lot of people are thinking about making money quickly, and so did it, so I want to do it as well, and not thinking about, you can be a freelancer, and that's great. And yes, you can make money, and you're in charge of your schedule, and you have that financial freedom and time freedom and location freedom. But what are you thinking about long term? And that's, I think, a topic that we still need to have in the community.
Yeah. Again, it comes back to the education piece and the awareness, because a lot of these things are glamorized. Like people highlight the benefits of a lot of things, entrepreneurship especially, but they don't highlight as much the responsibility that comes with it and the work that goes behind it. But I was going to ask you for actionable insights and resources on how you did this, like a step by step to break it down for the entrepreneurs. So when we talk of even setting up your benefits, right? Like, who did you go to? How did you set it up? Like, what websites should people be looking at? The same for even your retirement savings. Like, if you don't mind saying, is it an RSP? What bank are you using? Like, what are the questions that they should be asking when setting this up?
Yeah. So in terms of your benefits, what I did is I did a Google search on, benefits for somebody who is self-employed, and I wanted to compare what would I be getting in terms of the benefit. So if I want to get my teeth cleaned or visit an orthodontist or have physio or get a massage, how much of that percentage would be covered by the insurance and how much would I have to pay out of pocket? So I did an analysis. I looked at Sun Life, I looked at Blue Cross, I looked at Manulife, I looked at, I think it's Desjardins. I looked at so many different people who are brands and companies who offer health insurance and benefits. And then I just really picked the one that I found would be most affordable and one that would still cover more or less what I'm looking for. So when I looked at even to book a massage, I knew that at the maximum, I would only pay maybe $20 out of pocket. And then the insurance would cover $100 of the massage or however long it would be. So I did that. I believe that you're going to have to pay the first month and the second month, don't quote me, but I think that was what it was like when I was having to pay for the benefit. So I think one time, one of the payments was $321. I don't remember exactly, but I had to pay all of that up front. And it's again, geez, I got a budget for that. I got a budget for all my other business expenses. But again, this is what comes with, being an entrepreneur. So that's what I did. And I did that for a long time. And then my husband got a really great job and I canceled that membership. I canceled that card in an instant.
So there's another solution for the entrepreneurs. Get married. Makes things easier.
Yes, it did. And I remember even just my husband's like, cancel. And I'm like, no, I didn't even get to use all of that. I'm not going to cancel yet. And he's like, just cancel the extra $120 that you're paying. And I remember even getting an email from Blue Cross that says, we're going to increase your premium. And I'm like, before you increase it, cancel. So that's what I did. And then my husband got a really great job and I canceled. And I've been living off of him. God bless him. I'm so happy. So in terms
Shout out to the husband. Shout out to the husband.
And then in terms of retirement and savings, so even when it came to like purchasing our home, I remember just taking out a very lump sum of my business income, and I took that out, and I was able to go to the bank. The bank that I'm with is CIBC, and I remember again just having multiple conversations before I even did any of the money withdrawal of just what can I do with somebody in my position, and what can I do with the money that's here, and how can I build towards my retirement. So I took some of that money out to just put in savings, and I was able to have about $6,000 that I got back in 4 years of just putting that money aside. And then
$6,000 is like just interest, just interest, plain interest.
About because last year's 2023,
Interesting.
Yeah, so I took that out, and it was in I believe it's a mutual funds TSFA account.
Mutual funds TSFA.
I believe.
Account.
Don't quote me. Again, I'm still learning. But I believe that's what I know that it was a mutual funds account. And then I went back to the bank had a conversation a couple weeks ago about, okay, I'm looking again to, my next step. So the advice was, you have 6 figures in savings, take a portion of that out and you can max out your TSFA. And once that is maxed out, then you move into maxing out your RSP. So what I would recommend is everybody look at how much money can you set aside for your savings. And I know that, again, depending on where you are in your business, people will be laughing like, girl, like I don't even have an extra dollar to my name. And I get that. But as much as you can, as much as it's feasible for you, even if it's just $100 per month, you have to think long term. Like, do not get caught up in just my business and I'm excited, I'm going to CEO. Think long term. Please think long term and think about your business and where you want to be 20 years from now. Okay. You want to be a millionaire, you want to build wealth, whatever that looks like, have a conversation with the bank and speak to a financial advisor at whatever bank it is that you're banking at. You don't have to stay with them as well, but just at least have a conversation. So that's what I did. I booked a meeting with a financial advisor and they gave me advice on what I can do with the money. I can put some of the money into GIC, which is the bank would then trade the money that I put in, which I did. And that's how I was able to get $6,000 return. Or you can do mutual funds, or you can also look into stocks. That's another option as well. And I would say do all of them. You want to diversify your income. There's actually a scripture in the Bible that talks about, I think it's Solomon. I don't remember, but
I was reading it a few days ago.
It's in Ecclesiastics, and it's talking about how wise it is to
like have 7 ventures
and not putting all your eggs in one basket. And that is how you actually build wealth. Like people who are saved do it. People who don't know the Lord do it. Like everybody does that. So that legitimately is a way to build wealth. And so you would think about, okay, stocks, GIC, a mutual funds account, and that's how you want to think about diversifying your income. But your first step is to go to a bank, speak to a financial advisor, and just pick their brain. What can I do with the money that I have? You don't have to have 6 figures in savings. Like whatever you have right now, get started. And then the advice that I got from everyone at the bank, multiple banks, is to max out your TSFA because that's a tax-free savings account, and then move into maxing out your RSP. And once both of those are maxed out, you can, live your life as comfortable as you can. I'm not sure what age you'd be at when you max out both of them, but you would then, you have financial security, and that money will be able to grow over the next 10, hopefully 20 years. And then you can be able to take that out when you're looking for it.
Honestly, this is so timely, even just for me, because I'm getting into the space now where I'm taking my finances a little bit more seriously, because for so long, you live in survival mode, you're just surviving. Then you get to a point where okay, I'm thriving a little bit. I can can put a little bit aside. But then if you don't have the knowledge and the know-how, then
it just sits there.
It just sits there, or like you get back into the trap then because you misuse the money, and then you have to then like borrow and all of that. So I feel like a lot of it is about mindset when it comes to saving. And you say like it doesn't even have to be $1,000 that you're saving per month. Even if it's $100, it's $20, just fostering that culture of saving and financial discipline. And one thing that I found works really well is accountability, right? Having people that you're financially accountable to. And the podcast that we just had, the first podcast was sharing how rotating savings are a way to do that, because if every month you're accountable to a group of 10 people who are depending on you to put the $10 or the $100 that is owed to the group, then you make it work, like you budget around that, and at the end of the day it helps you kind of have the discipline, and you're saving something aside. But one of our previous guests also she gave a very interesting use case that I've never thought about. Like you can use rotating savings to max out your TFSA. So say your limit for the year is $5,000 and you're in a group of like 10 people, and the first month everyone puts in like $500. That's $5,000. You're the one who's getting the payout. So you get the $5,000, max out your TFSA, let it do its thing on the side, while you then focus on like then paying to that group. It's almost like a secured loan that's interest free at the end of the day, and you're borrowing from your future income in a sense.
It makes sense. It makes sense. It's innovative. And the fact that you're able to build your credit score and the fact that you can then max out your TSFA, it is absolutely going to be a route that many entrepreneurs are going to be taking.
Absolutely. Have you heard of any entrepreneurs, whether yourself or some of the ones that you coach, that use like community economic development systems? There's this one farm as an example. It's called Pamoja Farm, where Black community members pull funds together and they're able to like invest that into whether it's rates like real estate funds, or like actually like purchasing a farm together and like using that. Is this something that you're familiar with?
I'm not familiar, but I would be interested in learning more, because like everybody needs capital, right? Your next step can't just be my business and this is all what I want to do. You have to think long term. So even purchasing a farm is something I've thought of everything. I've thought of purchasing a farm, living on acres of land. I've thought of real estate. I've thought of purchasing buildings. So I would be interested in learning more about that, because that would be interesting.
That's my new obsession, honestly. Like just like farm. I watch a lot of videos around gardening. Like I do want to just live off grid at some point in a beautiful farm with like chickens and like lots and lots of chickens and coops. But anyway, I know the guys are signaling for us to wrap up. So as a wrap up, I have a couple of questions for you, Natania. You've shared so many insights today. If there were two or three things that you want entrepreneurs, content creators, freelancers to take away from today, what would they be?
I would say to start your business, but to think long term. I know that's been a recurring theme that I've been saying, but if I look back at getting started within my business, I would have thought a little bit more about the long term and the next steps, and not just thinking about the immediate business growth that I was experiencing as my business continued to scale. I would be thinking about how can I build wealth and build it with a level of longevity and sustainability, and not just on my business doing financially well or profitably well this year or this quarter. I would think about how can I even take more of the money that I'm making and put it into savings? How can I get these conversations around TSFAs and retirement, and even looking into investing some of the money that I have from my business back into the business in terms of a loan, or in terms of like doing a business venture with the money that I have? I would have thought about and had those conversations earlier. And my next advice would be is to have these conversations about wealth and money. I think sometimes within the Black community, we shy away from talking about money and how much people make, and your credit score and your debts and all of that. And I think there's a lot of shame around that. And I can understand, especially again, I didn't come from parents who were rich. So I understand just how much sacrifice our parents likely have made to get to where we are today. But I would have these conversations around money and talk about it with your friends, your family, other entrepreneurs, because I'm telling you, the more that you talk about it and the more you open up this conversation, the more you're going to understand how other people are making money or how other people are saving. And it's as easy as you getting that spark or that inspiration or that idea in that moment and saying, I want to do this as well. I see other people who are doing really well financially, and it's because of them having these conversations or just even talking about it online. I'm like, good, I want to learn about savings. I want to learn about GICs. And once I learn about it and then I get started, I can see how beneficial it is in the long run.
Absolutely. And so you're mentioning a lot around like community, around financial empowerment, right? Which is what this podcast is about. Yes, but also which is what Wovio is like mandating and putting forward. Like find a community of people that you can, foster these habits with, but also knowledge share. Like how are you doing it? Like how are you creating your GICs and your TFSAs, right? It helps pass down the knowledge. Natania, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. My Instagram name is Natania Creates. You can find that name on YouTube, on Threads, on Twitter, on TikTok, and on Facebook and Pinterest. I'm pretty much on every social media platform available. And then if you're looking to getting started with scaling or growing your business, you can head over to my website, which is www.nataniacreates.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this knowledge, not just for the audience, but for me too, because I absolutely needed it. And I'll be picking your brain.
I'm here.
I don't know if it's still $30 for your consultation. Like the price has changed. But yeah, thank you so much for chatting with us today. And I imagine the audience has so much feedback, so many questions. Your DM's going to be full. And so to our audience that's listening, watching from wherever, let us know in the comments, what was your favorite part of this podcast? What questions do you have for Natania? And we look forward to having you at the next episode. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and we will see you soon. I'm your host, Justina Kanza. Have a great one.